What's up, everybody? Big Herc, fresh out. You tune into another edition of Prison Talk, and I have a very special guest with me here today, Leone, and he's going to talk about some things I can't answer because a lot of times you ask me questions, and because I'm not that particular race, I can't speak on it. So I would like to get an answer from him, from his perspective. And Ryan, one of the things we always get hit up about is politics in prison. You know, there are certain things that are expected if you're a black guy, or you're a Mexican guy, or you're a white guy, and you haven't been in the state, in the feds, man. What was your experience with the prison politics?
So I was in federal prison, I was in state prison, and I was in federal prison in California, and you were in Lompoc as well, so you know that the federal prison politics are very similar to the California state politics when you're in a federal prison in California. To sum it up in just a couple sentences, I'd say that the politics in California are very racist. It's very racially divided. And people ask a lot of questions. Well, what does that mean? Can you talk to a black guy if you're in prison? You can definitely talk to another race in prison. You can gamble with another race in prison. That's how the politics are these days. But I can't eat behind another race. You know, if you say you make a bowl of soup or something, and you make
share
a burrito.
That bowl, yeah.
No, you can't give me that. I can't eat after you. It's a silly political rule. But we can play sports together. We can do business together. We can eat together. We can't share. We can't smoke together. We can't do drugs together. But we can do business. We can gamble. We can chop it up. We can talk. Can't sell up together. That's another thing. And so it's very racially divided. A lot of the politics come from that racial divide.
Now, based on what you've seen, though, would you say that in the feds, it's just a different mindset because of just the level of individual that's usually in the feds? I know from my experience when I was at Lompoc, one of my mentors was an older white guy, and we used to cook and kick it, but he was like an OG. He was already in his 50s. I was like 25, and this guy was well respected because he was one of the major guys in prison who did a lot of law stuff for people. So it was kind of like a different relationship. So didn't nobody sweat me being under this guy's mentorship. But I know, like, as far as if you just hung out with a white guy, people be like, oh, why are you talking to him? Was there a lot of that still going on? Or do you feel like and even though the feds were in California, that it's a little bit different because people's crimes are different than what you would catch the typical person in the state?
Yeah, that's a good question. The federal system has changed pretty drastically over the last 20 years or so. And the reason being is back in like the 1980s, or even through in the 1990s, they were going after big league criminals. And what happened is they started using the RICO Act, which is what they used to take down the Italian mob in the 70s. They started applying it to street level gang members. 18th Street, MS-13, Southsiders, but also Crips and Bloods. And what they're basically doing is they're indicting entire neighborhoods. So what you're seeing happening in the federal system right now is the quality of inmate is going down substantially. It's becoming much more like the state system. And from what I saw, the federal system is a little more compassionate. They're a little less strict about their politics, meaning, at Lompoc, you can hang out. You're a black guy, you can hang out with a white guy, and you're not going to be under that much scrutiny. Now, in the state system, it's much more militant. It's much more strict, and people get a little weird when you start pairing off with another race like that, like you had said. But in the federal system, people are, it's even though I had said the quality of inmates going down, there's still that higher level of inmate that's still in there from before. So it makes the politics a little more sensible. And
now, was there a big difference when you were back east? Because you said you went to Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah.
Totally different. Huh?
Totally different. When I was in Wisconsin, there were vice lords out there. There were gangster disciples. There were Latin kings, Latin folk. What other gangs were out there?
A lot of DC dudes.
A lot of DC blacks.
B-more,
Yeah, DC blacks. And even though they're in gangs, say I had a problem with you, and say you're a vice lord. You're a black guy, you're a vice lord, and you and I have an issue together. In the Midwest, you and I could go heads up, and we could just fight, we can handle it, and then that's it. It's a squashed issue. It's not like in California where if you and I start fighting, the entire penitentiary goes up in flames,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So it's much more kicked back there. You know, like, I don't know if it was like this when you were at Lompoc, but when I was there, they would make you wear shoes to the shower. You couldn't just wear shower shoes to the shower. You had to always have boots on or other shoes. When you get to the shower, you take your boots off, you put your shower shoes on, you go
never
in there.
walk around in your flip-flops.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
In the Midwest, it's not like that at all. It's a much more kickback environment. You see people hanging out in the day room in their shower shoes and their flip-flops. Yeah. It's much more like, it's not like you're walking on eggshells on the West Coast.
You got to be ready.
Yeah. So, yeah, there really were no politics in the Midwest. I mean, you know, it's kind of a case-by-case basis. It's like, you know, once in a while some gang stuff will happen, but it's pretty infrequent. And I think it's better out there. I mean, you don't see black guys selling up with white guys in the Midwest still, but when you go to like the chow hall, it's segregated. Blacks sit in one section, whites sit on the other. But the political climate there is a lot softer than it is on the West Coast.
You know, and I tell people, man, it's like, oh, you know, what's one of the worst things you see in prison? And I say the perpetuation of just the racial ignorance is one of the biggest things, and it's kind of like the prisons kind of endorse that to a degree because it keeps, it keeps control. You know what I mean? If I'm not really talking with you, we still got that kind of like that little divide. You know, we'll always have like no unity. You know what I mean? Which is pretty sad. But I tell people that's, you know, prison's probably the most racist place I've ever been to.
Oh yeah. And you know, there's a lot of people faking the funk too. You know, there's people acting racist that aren't racist.
Yeah.
You see the skinheads that are talking about how much they hate black people, but then they're bumping hip hop. They're bumping hip hop when you're in the cell with them, and you're like,
why are you listening to this? And then, you know, it's the people too who play the game and they get out. It's like, well, dude, what is? Oh man, I just got this when I was in there because you know. And it's like, oh, so you were under the radar.
Exactly.
You know, so.
And I always talk about that on my channel too. I say, when do you see skinheads out here when you're not in prison? When do you go to the beach and see someone with a swastika on their rib? You don't ever see them. They're all in prison. They're all in captivity.
Yeah, you're right. You know? You're right. It's a totally different, you know, just all around the board, just the level of character, because you would never really cross paths with those people because they're not socially out there like that, you know?
That's right.
So, hey, there you guys have it. Politics, federal, state, coming from Ryan Leone. Make sure you check out his channel, subscribe, support Big Hurt Prison Talk.